And camera one. Camera one. Yes, this one. Hi everyone.
Welcome everybody, welcome back to the Linescapes channel. We're glad to have you here. So today we will look at something very exciting with watercolors.
Yeah, so till now we did landscapes where we emphasized the techniques and the appearance, and we were talking a lot about composition and all the technical stuff that's important to build your own perspective and this feeling of space in a room, or in a painting, or in your sketch. And today we're gonna do the opposite. We're gonna deconstruct everything and try how it looks like when we try to create something or draw something when we use less elements.
Yeah, less is more, everyone. And let's look at what we will be learning today. So we will learn today some basics of watercolors. So if you're completely new to watercolors, this is also a great chance to get into it. We will look at some landscape painting tips in general, and we will look what it means shapes versus lines. What is the thing you should use when painting landscapes? And in the end, the most important thing we will learn today is this minimalist approach that Sonia just described.
Yeah.
So if you're here with us live, then we invite you to join and paint with us. And if you're here later watching the replay, then we think we'll also get great value from it.
Yeah. So go and get your material as long we don't start. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the beginning
All
of
right.
today's class.
What about you tell what they need for today, and I will look at the comment. Who is already with us?
Okay, so you're gonna need a set of watercolors. If you don't have any, you can also use some markers or pens with a broader tip. In addition to that, of course, you will need a brush, preferably something that has a really nice tip. Because today we're gonna try to create shapes, and we're gonna try to tell as much as possible with shapes. In addition to that, you're gonna need a pencil, some paper towels. I also brought a plate as always, and a glass of water.
So what should people do if they don't have any watercolors at home right now?
Well, if you don't have any watercolors at home, as I mentioned before, you can use a marker. You can also work with just one color if you want. You can also cook yourself a strong coffee, like espresso or something, and then try to dilute it with water so you get additional tones.
Yeah. So remember, now is your time to get some coffee. All right, Sonia. So we got people from all over the place. They're here from California. They're here from Sweden, from the States, from Europe, and so many people. Nice to see you again. Hello, Mary. Hello, Cress. Glenn, Greg, Isidore, Zoe. Hi, Tina is with us. HRZ. I'm really glad that so many of you are coming back and joining us. And
welcome.
Exactly. And you should, I mean, not you should, but we're just glad that you're here with us every next stream. Okay, we also got already a super chat donation, and therefore we have to thank you, Louis. This is amazing. And you can also support us, as you just saw, by adding something to the super chat. Everything you donate to us goes, of course, to producing more videos for you. So if you get some value out of our videos, you can consider that as well. Otherwise, just type your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, are you ready to start? I think today's session is also going to be very interesting, and you're going to enjoy it a lot because it's not so technical. So if you're a beginner, perfect. You're here in the right live stream.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are we going to be painting today?
So as we said in the name, today's topic is painting simple landscapes with watercolors.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna try to use the principle less is more. So we're gonna look at what can we do with not so much textures, with lack of color. So how can still elements in your painting be recognized as a whole?
And ultimately, a technique like this will save you time and will also probably even look better. Because our brain, when looking at abstract views, like an abstracted painting, fills in the gaps and actually even with its own imagination, and actually even makes the image more interesting.
Yeah.
So you actually leave it up to the viewer to finish it in their mind themselves.
Yeah, and it's basically also, maybe I can also speak during drawing, but a bit more about it. But it's so interesting as landscape architects, we learned that that landscapes are just a composition of many elements, and those elements are in some sort of structure, and it's a system that functions, and this system, you can call it a habitat or you can call it a cultural landscape. It's a system that functions, and it's just made of different elements. And of course, when you look at the picture, you can always decide, you see it and you think to yourself, wow, I can see meadows and trees and houses, and wow, where should I start? And of course, you need to consider the shade and the shadow and the textures, so it can get very overwhelming. So what we're going to try to do is just to deconstruct everything, which is going to be very helpful for many of you, probably.
So
Yes.
let's dive into
That's
it. All right. Boom. So we have our first landscape that you will be painting today with Sonia. All in all, there are going to be 3 different landscapes. So you get a feel of different kinds of, how to depict different kinds of landscapes as well. First, we will do a coastal landscape with the water. This is a question that's been popping up a lot, how to draw water. We'll also do a rocky one, and we'll also do one where there's a bit of settlements and houses visible. All right, and now get ready your paints. You can take a screenshot of this if you want to get it bigger, but we'll leave it here on the screen so you can see what is going on all the time, basically. Okay, so I told you that you should also prepare the pencil, right? And this is where the pencil comes to use. Since, you can, of course, do it like from head, or I think in our case it's better just to start with a small outline. And I would just like to encourage you to be brave, but not too precise. What I want you is just first of all, set for a half a page or something. Don't take too much space for this kind of drawing. Start small. It can be a A5 format or even smaller. It can also be a postcard size. How should it be oriented?
I would suggest that we stick to this format that is presented here. So it should be vertical.
Yeah, so stick with a portrait format. Like turn your paper in a way, or divide it in half if you have it, to get like 2 portrait format sketches.
Okay, so, and what we're gonna do an outline for this cliff, and there's a cliff that you can see in the foreground, and then there's another one, a small one, in the background. And I just don't want to deal with details, right? Because we said that we're gonna decompose everything. So I'm gonna just leave a lot of these informations to my imagination.
So how do you trace out these forms, Sonia? The shapes of the hills and everything?
I look at the contrasts, and these are basically the borders between the positive side. So between the elements and the space. That's also some sort of exercise that we also did on last week. We did it last week,
Yeah.
last Monday. And it's like just doing the outline between different colors or different shapes. And of course we know this is like the cliff, this is like the mountain or the rock, and then we have like this surface here which represents the water, and we can clearly see there's also two different tones of water, so maybe we can mark this one as well. And then also, for example, here in this rock, we can also notice that there are different kinds of textures. So I would add like a few spots where I can imagine that the green color will appear. Okay, so that's basically it. I don't want to continue because I would I have the feeling that I will start to overcomplicate stuff, so I will just leave it where it is.
So basically, just a couple of lines will help you define the thing you will be drawing. You're not like drawing it now with a pencil, so you don't have to go into detail too much.
Yeah.
The outlines will be totally enough.
Okay, so this is the first part. If you're using a marker or a graffiti, your process is probably a bit different, which means that you should start immediately with filling in the spaces with a lot of color. And what I mean by that is maybe you can just start with putting down some spots, like smaller spots or dots that define your shape, so that you approximately know where your rocks will be, and where the water starts and stuff like that. And then when you start coloring everything in, so now for the watercolor, I'm gonna decide first that I'm gonna do the water, because the water is the most, it's gonna be like yeah, the surface on which everything is just based. And I'm gonna use, and also don't think too much about the colors. Of course you can take your time, but since we have three to go, or two more to go, I would just say that we try to just manage as much as possible and do the abstract part.
So at this point, I will ask you a question because I'm interested in that. What is like the landscape or your environment that you live in right now? Is it like a city? Is it is it more like a dry landscape? Is it mountainous? Do you have hills? Are there forests? Do you live on the coast? This is very interesting to hear because actually, depending on where we live, we actually perceive then the landscapes differently because we're like used to certain kinds of environments, where we grew up or where we live. And this also influences our painting, right?
Yeah.
We notice different things and we like focus on different things. We think they're important. Yeah, so let me know in the comments, just like one word. Do you live in the desert? Just write desert.
Okay, so I tried to find the similar color that it's presented in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see, I didn't add any waves. And what I tried is just like to have like a clear line, clear break. And it's more about loose painting, right? It's not a technical painting. That's not the goal for today. What we want to achieve today is just to have this feeling for the surfaces, and how everything looks together. And this is also our main goal for today.
So, Sonia, how do you decide which surfaces? You said this is a minimalistic drawing. How do you decide which surfaces you're going to paint color in? I'm generally interested because I don't know this technique myself. This is something Sonia delved into, and I'm basically learning with you right now.
Of course, always when you start drawing, there are two types of drawing. One of them is where you just very technically focus on everything, right? If you're what we did last time, it was very realistic. So and in that case, everything had the same importance. And what we're trying to do here is just my end goal for this painting or this sketch is just to have some sort of presentation, abstract presentation of what's in front of me. So that means that I will try to find the shapes that remind me of this rocky structure, and the sea, which will probably get some more color later on. And yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's the
plan.
That's the plan.
All right. So we got some people from the city, someone from Indiana, which is flat with fields of corn and beans. All right, bean fields. And Tina says she lives in a rural landscape right now, by small parked fields, majority forests, covered hills. So yeah, these are, for example, 3 completely different landscapes or environments. And you can also then try out what you learned here, go out and draw your environment. It works the same for a cityscape, it works for different kinds of landscape. You will always just concentrate on certain elements that you will paint in, the way Sonia is teaching you now, and leave the rest blank. You will see how to achieve the recognizability of that landscape with as little strokes as possible. All right. Also, some grasslands and prairies. We also have some people from grassland prairies. Okay, so.
Okay, and when you're doing the back layers, try to dilute the color so that it's more translucent or transparent, because we don't want it to be heavier than the layers in front of it. Okay.
So if you noticed, this is one of the points we talked about what we will learn today. If you noticed, Sonia is rather painting surfaces, or let's say areas, instead of lines, right? So how do you how would you decide what is like an area, for example, that you want to paint in?
For me, parts where something happens are important. Of course, we can say everything, all this space is a two-dimensional space and everything has the same value, but here in this outline, for example, this part is part where the shade is happening. Or the stone is just cut in a certain way because of erosion or something.
So the shady part is basically a good way to go with if you want to paint something in, just paint in the parts that are in the shade.
Yeah.
Or the shady parts.
Yeah.
The sketchy parts.
The sketchy parts. Right. And then I also try to help myself with tracing the lines. So I noticed that this stone here, this rock, has like these verticals happening, right? And this is also some sort of pattern that's happening here. And I will just try to get it right, or just to imitate these lines. It's not necessary that it's perfect in a way that it looks exactly like that, but we want at least to try to imitate this kind of form.
Great. So basically using let's say the texture of the landscape and you're emphasizing the textures, the features of this rock, in which direction you see the shadows running and everything to make it recognizable, right?
Right. Okay, so and now I will just stop here. For example, this is the trick that you can always think about how can you emphasize one stone. For example, I will try to emphasize this cliff in the foreground through that I will just shade the cliff in the background.
Oh yeah, this is a good trick in general, right? When you want one element to stand out, there is a good chance you will manage this if you put the elements that are behind it, if you make them, let's say, darker, or just make them, or leave them blank. This will make this one element stand out. And this is just what Sonia did right now. Like the hill behind it, she just put it in one flat color, and in this way, suddenly the hill in the front is much more visible and has like a feeling of depth and volume.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. I love what's happening. I love with how many few. Basically, you just did a few lines. You did a few surfaces. You did a few. It looks like even small splatters, and it immediately looks like a rock.
Right. I mean, you can recognize it. And that's the best part.
And the whites in this rock now, you will leave white.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I will not add any additional color to the whites of the stone.
So this is the principle, like, of this minimalistic drawing. So you leave. I mean, you try to leave as much white as possible, or?
Yeah. I mean, I can give you an example how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that you're chasing the train, and the train leaves in a few minutes. So you have like 5 minutes to capture this view with a sketch because your phone battery just died, and you would like to do this. You would like to take this memory with you, and this is the only way you can do it. So don't take too much time for it. Don't think too much about it, and just focus on the important elements. So the elements that are important to you. And this is what I'm trying to do here. Just to think about what's important to me. How can I represent some elements that work nicely together?
So people, yeah, if you want to make your sketches minimalistic, just imagine a train or get a car. If you don't want to have the minimalistic.
Okay. And now we still.
And I must say, is this true that the fastest sketches I did usually were the best ones? This is amazing because probably, you're forced to concentrate on the essential, and this is exactly what Sonia has been doing here.
Okay, and now I will just, in the end step, add some brown color, some sandy brown hopefully, for the sand.
All right, I love it. So how are you out there doing? If you have any questions, do write us in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them. We also got many more answers, Sonia, from where they are. So people are actually from all over the place. We got people from Pacific, so they like to draw Pacific Ocean and rainforest, Pacific rainforest. Wow, this is something I would love to experience one day. City with huge mountains is Carlos, and Karen from California, close to the coast, and seascapes are her favorite painting subjects. Ooh. So Karen, this is perfect, I think. If I'm not mistaken, California has like these cliffs and then the Pacific Ocean, so I guess you could find views similar to this as well in your surroundings. And then we have Giga, who is stuck in Šiška, which is a part of Ljubljana, my hometown, where I grew up, so I know where this part is, and yeah, I hope you get unstuck.
Okay, so I think I will just leave it be here. I won't do anything more because I think if I would like to try this, the perfect thing is that you can very fast try many things out. For example, I did this here, and then you notice like, whoa, in 5 minutes I managed this, but what I'm interested in is how can I emphasize the sky maybe, or emphasize the sky and the sea and leave out the stones. So you can very, very much play with it. You can decide for yourself what's important for you in that moment, and you can just go and sketch that out. So, for example, I can decide here, I tried steel. If you ask me, I was too precise. I could go even more abstract. And I hope in the next sketches, we're going to achieve that I can show you what I really mean, like with a line or two, bam, everything's done. So.
All right. So I would suggest we will slowly move to the next one. And if you're not ready yet, take a screenshot of this one so you can continue working on yours if you want. You don't have to follow Sonia in her pace. You can go your own pace. And that's why, make a screenshot of this landscape if you want to finish it. And for those of you who are moving on to the next one, let's go to the next one.
You know nothing about Shishka. You're from the center. Okay, are you ready for the next one? I hope you were following, like just 1 line, 2 lines, bang, 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 with color. And
all right.
Moving on.
Yeah, the next one we have is a mountain landscape. Let's go. All right, a nice Alpine image.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it here. And as before, I'm gonna help myself with a small outline so that it won't be too hard.
So what are the elements that you're gonna basically outline here? Which are these characteristic things that you're interested in this particular photo?
Okay, so we have this church with this amazing background.
Super cute.
And it's standing on a pasture field or just on a meadow. And I think I'm gonna leave out the houses because my main focus is that object that I'm gonna try to draw. And now if you just look at the structure of this architecture, of this object, so what's really important or representable here is not the color of the facade, right? But the shapes. So you can see the roof pretty clearly. You can see the windows, you can see the doors, the stairs, and of course the church tower. So that's gonna be my main focus. So not the build construction of the facade or of the object, but just the elements that hold everything together. I'm gonna try to represent this grass field in a stroke or two. Maybe later on add some shadow that this object is throwing on the grass field. And then for the background, I will try to use 2 colors for it. So I'm gonna keep it minimal without any pointy shapes for this Alpine landscape or just type of trees. I'm not gonna try to do any spruces or anything that represent this kind of landscape. I'm gonna even let out all the textures for the mountains at first. Maybe later on I'm gonna add some, but right now my main focus, I want my main focus to be based on this object.
All right.
Okay, so as said before, I'm gonna start with just doing a small, and of course, as you see, there's also a nice composition, right? So I'm gonna position, if this is my piece of paper, I'm gonna try to position my house here, and then I have still some space left that I do the mountains as I planned.
So this was a very important thing Sonia just did right now. She just imagined how the sketch or the painting will fit on the paper. And this is one of the basic landscape drawing painting tips that we can give you. Landscapes are like a huge, they're a big subject to draw. They're physically big. They're all around you when you are in a landscape. And it's easy to lose yourself. You start on your sketchbook page, you look at the landscape, and then you move from left to right, and suddenly, the feature you wanted to fit on paper does not fit. So a good idea is, like Sonia did, to define what is your main interest. In Sonia's case, is this nice church, and then imagine where it will stay or be positioned on paper. So do this, and immediately a lot of your paintings and sketches will become better because you will do a bit of planning before. So think before you draw is a good sentence to remember.
Okay. So, and as I said before, it's not important to be super precise. For us, it's very important just to maybe think about the proportions, not like that the house is so big as this whole page, but just try to think about the proportions if you compare the house in height to the mountain, that you still get the mountain on your piece of paper. So try to think about those kind of things. And I think what's very nice about this kind of drawing, it's called loose painting, is that it's much more intuitive, and through that you can also express your feelings a bit better. So my goal for this year is somewhere in between. So how can I express this ambient that I'm just seeing or experiencing in the landscape, and capture it with different kinds of media, like not just watercolors, but maybe add some fine liners in as well, or I don't know, maybe some colored pencils. So I did the outline for the mountains. This is the vegetation edge. Maybe I'm gonna add some spots of vegetations here later on as well. But let's just focus on the house, on the object.
So at this point, once again, if you have any questions, do ask Sonia or myself. I'll do my best to answer them as well. But yeah, just type it in the chat, and we'll answer if you're not, progressing, or if you're stuck somewhere. I'm also interested if you're actually already with us at this point, or are you still doing the first one, which is completely fine. Go at your own pace. Watercolors are supposed to be a nice medium and not a stressful one, right?
Yeah.
I always think of watercolors as really relaxing.
Yeah, maybe we can start with a very relaxing voice.
All right, let's switch to our watercolor voices. They are much more relaxed. And when we draw in spray paint, doing graffiti, we talk completely differently.
Much more aggressively. We use the slang language and everything. Yeah, but I think the communication today is a bit slower because they are also engaged in this process.
Which is completely fine. I'm glad you are immersed in this painting. It's definitely fun to look at. I'm just an observer this time, and I must say I'm also having fun because I love this minimalist style. So is there something, some basic watercolor tips that you could give someone starting off with watercolors? What should they be careful about? How are you applying water to paper, or, etc.?
So today we're using basic technique. Usually everyone starts to do that because it's the most easy one to do. And this is what we're doing right now is wet on dry, which means that we're trying to apply like a decent amount of paint on a dry piece of paper. And beside that, then you also have like wet on wet and dry on dry. But that's not so important right now. For example, what I think is very important is that you have the right brush.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find a brush that fits you. Usually for doing watercolors, it's very nice to have like a brush that's a bit wider at the beginning, and then it gets like pointy on the end. And that's because I can still do like really precise lines, and at the same time, if I want to color in the whole surface, I did it here, and that was also not a problem. Because with watercolors, you need to consider the speed. You need to be fast, especially because you're working with a lot of water. Also, always when you're working with water, it's always good to have like a bit of thicker paper. Usually for watercolors, you would use a paper which is approximately 300 grams or something similar. And you can also use mixed media paper, that's also fine.
Well, if you don't have access to this kind of heavy paper right now, this is also completely fine. For example, I do a lot of my watercolor sketches really fast simply into my sketchbook, and my sketchbook is definitely not that heavy, so the paper is much thinner. I think it's about 120 grams. The thing I have to be careful of, because my paper is so thin, the one I usually work with, is that I do not apply too much water. So if your paper is thinner, don't apply too much water because it will wrinkle and get like wavy. And to prevent this, just don't overdo with the water. But I think with this technique it's actually also possible to just use very little water, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got one question for the break, and this is, Sonia, if we are both landscape architects.
Yes, we are both landscape architects.
Yeah, we both studied landscape architecture. We actually studied at the same university in Slovenia, and then also a bit of our studies in Germany. And then we moved to Germany and practiced as landscape architects. Right now I'm still practicing landscape architect, and Sonia is focusing a lot on drawing and creativity, right?
Yeah. This is my main focus right now. And I must say it's a lot of fun because, I think through that I can also tell you a lot more than you would usually get, because I can really dive into topics and tell you much more, because, that's really something we're passionate about.
How did you decide to do that step? I think that's always interesting to hear, to go into this direction.
So, as mentioned before, where we did the mountains, where I just tried to use the background as an outline, I'm gonna try to do this here as well. So I'm gonna just, instead of focusing on the facade and do the outline for the facade with the black line, I'm just gonna use the environment to outline it for me. And this is also the same thing that we did 2 weeks ago with this exercise, the creative exercise, where we were just trying to define the negative space. So the space around your main element, that's what I'm trying to do here right now. And I think that's also very nice to do, because then I'm not focusing on that object, and I'm not focusing on the textures that I would usually do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So the grass you applied, basically you did not draw the whole surface, paint the whole surface green, right?
No, because it's not necessary. I mean, when you see this sketch, you know that I was thinking about grass, and that's what's important here.
Yeah, it's recognizable as grass, basically. Yeah.
Think about it as like very clear, pure abstraction. So how far can you take it, And then if you're still not happy with it, if you say, this is too abstract, Sonia, I can't live with this, I need details, you can then take your fine liner or a pen, like a really fine one, a dark one, and then go inside and add some textures and maybe define some trees. And that, I think, it's like, the trick is how to combine different media that it still looks good. So that's something that I'm looking forward to it in exploring through this media. So how can I use it in my advantage? Because it's not always just like, oh, it needs to look pretty, but you just want this special effect, this special something.
Certain extra.
Yes, certain extra, like.
All right, yeah. You can always do that. Usually the certain extra comes with adding some small darker spots, textures, usually really just some dots. This is what I usually do when I finish a sketch. I look at it, with a stretched out hand, with a bit squinted eyes, so it gets all blurry. But through that, I notice which parts are still missing something. It's as if, you would step, I don't know, 5 meters away and look at it, and then from far away, sometimes you notice where in the drawing or the painting something is missing, and then you go back and change it. So basically, you know, a good tip: just squint with your eyes, stretch out your hand, or you know, move a bit back from your paper and look at it and see what you could add. And with that, I would also always just say, follow your gut feeling. You already have it in you. We have naturally our natural feeling for composition and harmony. So you should just follow that.
Okay, so, and what I'm always doing all the time, maybe one thing that I can mention now, many of you who were following our tutorials before or did the live streams with us know that it's very important not to mix all the colors together, but just stick to the ones you chose. For example, I'm constantly just mixing 5 different tones or 5 different colors, and then I just try to add more water, less water, and through that I get different effects. For example, this green, although it has like, it looks like it has more colors inside, it's basically just one color which is diluted with a lot of water. So think about that. It should still have like a harmonical effect at the end. When you look at it, it should be still harmonical, not like all the range of colors, the whole range of colors on your color wheel. So just stick to the few colors or the 5, for example.
It's also minimalism in the choice of color, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Nicely put.
Yeah, well, it is. I think with the sketches, I like it because they're also, you know, not too color diverse. They minimalistic in many ways. And you know, minimalism is in right now, so you might as well do minimalistic watercolors.
Okay. So what I'm doing right now is, if you look at it, I'm not trying to go directly to the colored surface. First of all, it would not be, if I would just add this green to the border or to the line with the church roof, first of all, it would not be seen, and second of all, probably it wouldn't even fit together nicely. So I'm just gonna leave like a small break. But for example, here I can just go basically till the edge, right? Because the colors are not mixing together, and the color is also dry.
Wow, I like how this is turning out. Now because you only drew the roof and basically the windows of the church, now when you're giving it an outline, it really emerges as a volume, as a building. I like it. So you're basically drawing negative space around, or painting negative space around the church, right?
Yes.
Great.
Okay. So I think this is also something that was missing. If you were following our last live stream where we did watercolor landscapes, it was all about textures and details and stuff like that. And this, in comparison to that, is just like a bit, it calms you down in a sense that you can just experiment a bit and be very abstract. And through that, you're not afraid of making a mistake. You know, as we joked around last time and we said, Bob Ross always says, there are no mistakes, just small, happy little accidents. And that's exactly that. I mean, you can always just say, okay, wow, next time I'm going to do it differently.
And Bob Ross had completely right.
Yeah.
We should do a Bob Ross tutorial sometime, so I think, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, let me blend you this back. Okay. So I will turn to the comments right now a bit, because we have some questions. So first of all, we have a technical one. Is that a nylon brush or an animal fur brush? And which one is better?
This is a nylon brush I'm using. And it depends on what you're doing. If you're, the difference between those two is that the natural hair brush absorbs much more water. So if you're trying to do something like on big scale, if you would like to color in the whole A4 page of paper, then, for example, if you're doing clouds, You know, if you're just doing like a very nice cloudy sky, then you need to work with a lot of water and you need to work pretty fast. So you need a tool that will help you do that. And that's why the natural hair brushes are the best for that kind of work. And if you're doing something where you can take your time, where you can add some details, then those kind of brushes like nylon ones are great as well. But I think you can combine those two easily. I think I would do also a great painting just by using natural haired one.
Of course you would. Of course you would. So then we have another question, interesting one. Were we good at drawing even before the architecture school or our architecture course? Okay, interesting question. Let me say for myself, I always liked to draw and paint. And in school, I would say I was good at drawing. Although I completely neglected drawing towards the end of school and never thought I would basically go into it because I've totally went into photography. And when the first drawing course at the university started, I put down the camera and took up the sketchbook and never really looked back. So yeah, I did have some background, but it is really not important, I would say, to have this background in drawing, because at any point in your life, when you pick up something artistic, something creative, you can start doing it, especially if you're doing it for a certain profession. Let's say you started studying design or architecture. Those kind of professions require a certain style of drawing. So sometimes it's actually better if you don't have any pre-existing knowledge in other styles of drawing. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you because I can tell you that from my own experience. So I went to art gymnasium before I started studying landscape architecture, and my main problem was this abstraction that you need to achieve when you're depicting landscape as a landscape architect.
What you're basically also doing right now, this abstract drawings, right?
Yeah, that was my main problem. I was just stuck, because I always thought it needs to look perfect when you're doing portraits and shading them, and when you're just studying the faces and forms and how everything is put together, when you're just in a different mindset, and then switching to something like architecture or landscape architecture, when the scale is bigger, the technique is different, so you need to switch. So I was capable to draw, but I took so much time. So that was my main struggle, or my main obstacle that I needed to overcome.
All right. We also have like a comment that we both look great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We work out.
We work out. We do our best despite the situation. We are both, working from home office, and we said, there are two possibilities. Either we roll out of the door like a ball when the quarantine is over, or, we come out completely ripped, and we choose the latter.
Yeah.
Okay, so also another question, and I might try to answer because it's interesting. As landscape architects, how did you find your style of reaching new landscapes? Of reacting new landscapes. Maybe you could elaborate exactly what you meant with that, Andrea. But as landscape architects, it definitely helps us with understanding landscapes when we paint them or draw them, because sometimes we see things someone who's not trained as a landscape architect wouldn't see, and maybe we focus on them, or I would say it helps with painting. But yeah, you can maybe tell me exactly what you mean. And do we like black and white style, or do we more like color? Sonia?
I like black and white a lot. Yeah.
Sonia's into black and white?
I like black and white, but I'm trying to push myself to do much more color for sketches, because yeah, you know. I mean, color is beautiful, right? But the black and white, man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And for me, I would say I'm recently starting to discover color. I was like completely black and white person. You know, it was strict. You know, you have like cat person, cat people, dog people. I was like a cat person and a black and white person. Now I'm switching to a color person, but I'm staying with a cat person, I would say. Okay, so Sonia, right now you're adding actually the back layer.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going?
Well, I think I did it too much. Like if you're still working on your mountains, you can do better. Okay? Because I mean these surfaces could be much easierly drawn, and I noticed that I'm not pushing myself in a sense of speed, and that's why I'm just starting some wiggly lines. They don't serve anything. So yeah, you can do better.
So do you think we want to do one more real fast?
Yes.
If I push you and say, okay, Sonia, now you have like, let's say 3 minutes or 5 minutes to do it?
Yeah, let's
You
do
up
it.
for a challenge?
I am.
Okay, everyone. So we will wrap up with this one. So take a screenshot if you haven't already. The video will be available still online, so you can continue or rewatch it later. And we'll go to the challenge for Sonia. She will have to do it in 5 minutes, and it will be interesting. Do try to do it as well, because when you have, when you just have 5 minutes, the train is leaving, as you said.
Yeah.
You have to focus on the essentials. All right.
That's it.
So. Okay, so people are protesting, but all right, we have to. The train is leaving. The train is leaving.
The train is leaving, people. Come on, we have just 5 more minutes.
All right, let's do it. So the third one we have is one that's pretty, I would say, like a very known view. Do we have someone who is from the area? So this is Monument Valley in natural landscape. How do you call it? Natural park, national park in the States, in the United States. And yeah, I will give Sonia now 5 minutes. Do you have some starting thoughts before we dive into it?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have just 5 minutes. Now listen up. Let's do an outline for the sky. So let's separate the landscape from the sky. Zack, zack, zack. Fast outline. And then instead of coloring in all the details, we're gonna just focus on the lines, for the hill. And this is how we're going to achieve the maximum effect. And then if we have still some time at the end, we can still add some colors inside. But I would start with separation of the sky and the landscape, and then do the lines, and then at the end I would do the color. Okay, so that's my technique. That's how I'm gonna do it. You can do your own version.
All right, so this is a plan. I will suggest you start, and I will do another look at the comments. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, people. So I will press my timer. My notorious timer is on. The time is running, and let's do this in 5 minutes. Okay, we have people joining from other places like Portugal as well. First of all, there was an interesting question: how we get inspiration for creating new landscapes. And maybe I can answer this one because I'm very much still into creating new landscapes, and drawing and painting is like a big part of how I do it. I would say inspiration when you're creating anything new, be it landscapes. Right now I'm doing public spaces, some children playgrounds, but also some other stuff. But always try to draw inspiration from as many sources as possible. This is a general advice for creatives. For if you're a professional creative, or if you're someone who just, is like someone using this as a hobby, as relaxation, or someone who just wants to get good at this, try to find as many sources as possible. Try to have as many interesting experiences, because subconsciously they will influence your work. All right. I will look if I have another one. And meanwhile, Sonia, what are you doing?
As I said, I'm trying to do the outline and separate the mountain of this beautiful, beautiful stone from the
Monument Valley?
Yeah.
If it's not Monument Valley, people from around there, please correct us, but I hope we named it right. Monument Valley National Park. There are some beautiful landscapes around there in the States, and yeah, would love to visit one day. Go on a sketching tour of the States. Would be amazing.
Wow, yes.
We have to do it.
Okay, so regarding the brushes, right now would be amazing to work with natural hair brush. I would be so much faster. I needed to go in and reapply the pigment or the color like 5 or 6 times. Okay, so I'm gonna stay here, and now I'm just gonna take the color that's, yeah, similar to this one that's on the stones.
I will go back into the comments because we have some interesting questions as well, and while you do it and the time is ticking, I can go into them. So abstraction is more difficult with complex scenes like cityscapes. That is true. The more complex the scene, the harder abstraction, but in my experience, landscapes are the hardest one to really abstract. And do we ever experience a creative block, and what to do to get past it? All right, so Danielle, this is a very good question. We do experience creative blocks, and it's a topic we've been dealing with a lot lately. We did a couple of videos on how to overcome it. We did a couple of creative exercises that we really liked. I will just post one of them into the chat so you can see. I would just say, you know, very basically, just start drawing, just start doodling around. This is the very simple answer, and you'll definitely come up with solutions or new ideas. And the other one would be, you know, get new impressions, new experiences. All right, so here is one of the videos that we did on one of the creative exercises that will help you overcome your creative block. We'll also link it in the video description if you're watching this at a later time.
Can I ask when our train is leaving?
Our train is leaving in 1 minute.
Oh.
But you're doing a great job. How do you guys and gals like it? Did she capture the spirit of the rock? I really like it. I like how you followed the lines of it. Wow, this is amazing, Sonia, really.
Thanks.
Wow, so the train did you good. Okay, and Peter asked, do we keep any sort of inspirational board for designs, like a Pinterest or a file on our computer? Pinterest, yes, definitely. Pinterest has changed our lives. Before it were files, you know, files, folders and files. And we did keep collections like that, also analog. You know, I like to collect postcards, you know, like on pieces of posters, and I used to have these piles everywhere, and I still somehow do, but nowadays Pinterest is more practical.
No, the train is leaving, we need to run, pack your stuff together.
And
that's
wow,
it.
Amazing, Sonia. This turned out amazing.
Okay. This is my version. Whew, for 5 minutes, I think it's fine. I think it's okay.
So how did you decide which elements to focus on?
I tried to work with the elements that are more in contrast. So basically what I did was a negative painting. I drawn just the shady parts of this picture. So yeah, that was my main focus. So I left all the color away and just started adding the lines and the bushes.
All right, amazing.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you.
We also got, meanwhile, we got a super chat from Isidore, so it's time to thanks. Thanks a lot, Isidore. Thank you for
Thank
supporting
you.
us. Everything any one of you basically contributes or donates is going, towards us making more for Linescapes and making ultimately more for you. So we hope you're getting value out of this. People are loving the colors you used, and also saying it would be interest to see our Pinterest boards. Do we have a Pinterest accessible Pinterest account? We do have a Pinterest account, people. We do have one, and there is an interesting Pinterest board that is public, and it's called Drawings We Like. It's an interesting one to dive into. You can see also a progression through the years. I would say like last 7 years of what drawings we liked to now. Yeah, you can gladly follow us on Pinterest. One great place to follow us is definitely Instagram. This is where we put a lot of value, and we'll also be going live on Instagram more often because we just started going spontaneously live at different times of the day. So you can always catch us there as well. And what about the Facebook group?
Yes, we have amazing Facebook community. Our Facebook group is called Linescapers, and you're welcome to join us. We try to give each other feedback, how to improve the sketches, just to share everything. And yeah, it's a great group of people.
Awesome. So we put the Facebook group in the description of the video. Go there, join us, and share what you just did today. Just take a photo with your phone and post it there. We'd be really interested to see what you did. So before we go to the final thing, let's look at what we learned today. Let's just do a quick wrap up. So basically, we saw how to use the basics of watercolors. Sonia told us something about the color and what to do if you're just starting out. It's basically, this wet on dry paper is a good idea, right?
Yeah. So we learned something about brushes, what kind of brushes is the best to use, then how to use colors. Don't use too much colors, use maximum 5 colors and try to mix those between each other. And we were talking about, what else were we talking about?
Yeah, when you're drawing landscapes, that you focus on your element. You focus on your element, you map it out first, you get an idea how it will look like, and paint shapes, not lines. I think this is a very crucial one for painting landscapes, so remember that one. And then in the end, we got Sonia's minimalist approach, which definitely is less is more, right?
Less is more, yeah. Another technique that you can use depending on how much time you have, and maybe this is also something that broadens your horizon and will help you develop your further skills when dealing with watercolors.
Exactly. So do share what you have today, and we have a small schedule for next week or for the coming Friday and Saturday. So Friday 17th at 5 p.m. European time, 8 a.m. Pacific, or 8:30 I think p.m. India. We're going to be improving your sketches in 1 minute. We set this as a challenge because we have to also become faster. So do send us, via Facebook, via email, or via DM on Instagram your works, and we'll give you feedback. I think you'll get a lot of value from it also by just watching. And on Saturday, we'll do a chill and draw clouds, right?
Yes, we're gonna draw clouds. Oh, this is so fun. I can hardly wait.
So share those upcoming events with your friends or family as well. I hope they can get, some fun or value out of it in these times. Maybe they're all at home. We are definitely. And we want to thank you again for Tina, Peter, everyone who also donated, and everyone who joined us. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all the lovely feedback. And was great to have you here.
Yeah. You're amazing. We wish you a great day, a great evening, and we hope we see you on Friday.
Yeah. Stay safe, everyone, those times. And you know what to do. Keep on drawing.
And see you next time.
Mwah.
Bye-bye.